don't have our co-chairs here, so we will get started with the regular meeting of the Minneapolis Advisory Committee on Housing. And so I will go ahead and take the roll. And sorry, I'm sitting in this dark room where the lights go off automatically and I'm not moving enough to turn them on. So sorry, I'm in darkness here, but I will take the roll. Karina Bowler.
Here.
Bruce Brunner.
Here.
Chloe Jackson. Spolinski Jaycox.
Here.
Queen Kimmons. Charlotte Kinsley.
Here.
Aliana Latron Garcia. David McGee. Lisa Mears.
Here.
Melissa Newman. Colleen O'Connor Toberman.
Here.
Maggie Addy.
Here.
Scott Schaefer. Janine Sija.
Here.
Cecil Smith.
Here.
Rose Tang. Annie Wells.
Here.
All right, we have 10 members here, so we do have a quorum. So could we get a motion to adopt the agenda? Or is there a motion to adopt the agenda, I guess is what I should be saying.
This is Bruce. I move that we adopt the agenda.
I'll second. This is Colleen.
All right, thanks, Colleen. All right, I will take the roll. Karina Bowler. Karina? I'll come back to Karina. Bruce Brunner.
Yes.
Oh, thanks, Karina.
Yes.
Bruce Brunner. Okay. Chloe in here. Spolinski Jaycox.
Yes.
Charlotte Kinsley.
Yes.
Lisa Mears.
Yes.
Colleen O'Connor Toberman.
Yes.
Maggie Addy.
Yes.
Janine Sija.
Yes.
Cecil Smith.
Yes.
Annie Wells.
Yes.
There are 10 yeses, so the agenda is adopted. And then is there a motion to adopt the minutes from the last meeting?
This is Charlotte. I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes.
Is there a second?
This is Bruce. Second.
Thanks, Bruce. All right, I will take the roll on that. Karina Bowler.
Yes.
Bruce Brunner.
Yes.
Spolinski Jaycox.
Yes.
Charlotte Kinsley.
Yes.
Lisa Mears.
Yes.
Colleen O'Connor Toberman.
Yes.
Maggie Addy.
Yes.
Janine Sija.
Yes.
Cecil Smith.
I believe I was absent, so I think I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Annie Wells.
Yes.
All right, there are 9 yeses and 1 abstention, so those are adopted. Okay. Now we have our opportunity for public comment, and I apologize, I don't have the script that our co-chairs usually use in front of me, but we do invite, this committee does provide an opportunity for public comment at each meeting, 1 minute per person, and we do request that comments, to the extent possible, pertain to items on the agenda, or at least to items that are under the purview of this committee. And so I will open it up to see if there is anyone who would like to make public comment. And if you are on the phone and muted, you'll need to press *6. So is there anyone here who would like to make a comment? All right, I'll maybe ask one more time. Anyone on who would like to make a comment today? Okay, hearing none, we can close the public comment section. Now we'll move to announcements. I will start, and then Tina, if there are details I'm missing, if you can help me fill in with Joey not being on, or Lisa, you may know this as well, Lisa Smustad. But as you may have observed, if you're paying attention to the city council, they have moved to in-person meetings starting this week. And so, and the way that the clerk's office has sort of staggered things is they wanted to start as things were moving back to in-person with the city council and city council committee meetings, and then is transitioning to advisory boards and commissions moving to in-person as well. And so our next meeting in May will be in person. We are working on securing a location. We anticipate it will likely be at the new public service building downtown, which is kind of kitty corner from City Hall. There's Queen. Hi, Queen. Kitty corner from City Hall and across the street from the Government Center. And so we can send out more information by email ahead of the meeting, but just wanted you to be aware that the next meeting will be in person. And my understanding is we will not have, we are not going to be set up to do hybrid options. And so, oops, sorry, I just clicked on the wrong thing. So that's the announcement. And Tina, do you have anything to add to that? Did I miss anything? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Oh, no, no problem. No, you did not miss anything. I did start reserving rooms because they're booking fast. So it's most of the meetings except for October. We'll get to that when we go along as the year goes along. But they will be at the public service building on the first floor in that main conference room. So if people have ever been to the public service center, you just come in the doors and it's right in the middle of the building on the first floor. So it should be easy to access. And so I have them reserved for that room for every month except for October. And I will send out updated invites, just changing that, taking it off of Teams and putting the new address on the invites starting in May.
Question?
Okay.
I guess Katie's frozen. Or Queen, sorry. Will there be instructions for parking and transportation options to the meeting? I know we used to have that a few years ago when we used to meet in person.
Yes, as far as I know, parking will be in the Hoff ramp, and we will provide parking vouchers for the Hoff ramp. So I'll include that in when I update the invites, I'll put the parking location, and then we will provide parking vouchers for the Hoff ramp.
Thank you.
And I believe we're gonna, oh, yes, you're welcome. Also, I think we're gonna also offer something for Metro Transit as well. So I'm working on that as well. So if anyone's taking Metro Transit or the train, I'll provide those as well.
Thank you, Tina.
You're welcome. It looks like Katie froze, so I think she's probably logging out and logging back in. So we'll give her a minute.
I don't know if we have enough people to even
call for the roll call or what have you. I'll just wait till Katie or Scott comes back.
We did roll call, approve the agenda and the minutes. We do have a quorum. There's 10 people. And Scott, I guess, is not here today. Joey's still in a meeting with in the council chambers. So she'll be joining shortly. So Katie's is kind of filling in. So hopefully she can get back in.
Okay.
If she doesn't come back after a couple more minutes, Queen, you could run the meeting off of the agenda.
Yeah, I'm looking at the agenda. So look like we are on the public hearing part of the meeting. So probably we should just give them a few more minutes, Lisa, to kind of debrief us a little bit about what that meeting entails. And I believe this is with the city council, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm seeing an email from Katie that's asking us to keep the meeting going. It was also sent to you, Queen.
I'm fine with it. I believe we are on the issue of the public hearing.
She actually called for that, but no one said anything.
Ah, okay. Because shortly after that, we should be joined by President Councilmember Andrea Jenkins.
Queen, I believe we're on number 6. We're on the new executive director of race and equality.
Okay. I see that as number 7, the new executive of race and equity. I want to pronounce this correctly, Tanisa Green. Is Ms. Green available?
Queen, this is Katie. I'm joining by phone because I am having issues with Teams. I apologize.
It's okay.
I think that the purpose of this agenda item was just to announce that the city has hired her, Ms. Green, as the new director for the Office of Race and Equity. That position has been vacant for a little while, so we're excited to have that position filled. And she started within the last couple of weeks. And so we just want to make sure the committee was aware of that and that we would invite her to a future meeting so that she can come talk to the committee about the work that she and her office will be doing.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Katie. I want to know, is President Councilmember Andrea Jenkins going to join us?
So she is intending to. We're hoping she still will be able to. The council is still meeting. They've had a rather lengthy meeting today, and so she's chairing the city council meeting right now that is still going on. So we're hopeful that she'll still be able to come before our meeting ends, but I think we can move on to the next agenda item, and then if she is able to join, we can stop where we are and have her address the committee then.
All right, thank you. So I am on, if everybody is on item line number 9. I'm sorry, line number 8, future agenda items.
I think before that, Queen, there is an item on rent stabilization. So I could just give a brief update on that, if that's okay with you.
Yes, we seen community conference and then rent stabilization, but please go ahead, fill us in.
Oh, okay. Well, we can do it in that order. Sorry, I must be looking at a different version. So take it whatever order you would like to.
So let's do rent stabilizations, Katie, and maybe that way, whatever other items out there we can address.
Okay. So part of the reason the council meeting is still ongoing right now is that they are debating a resolution to establish a work group that would create recommendations around a rent stabilization policy for the city. I think, as you'll recall, there was the amendment adopted by voters last fall that allows the city council to consider a rent stabilization policy. And so the council is considering a resolution right now that would create a work group. And so it hasn't been adopted unless something has happened in the last few minutes that I just haven't tracked, but it hasn't quite been adopted yet because the council is still meeting. If the council does adopt it today, they're working through some amendments right now, but the way it was proposed to the council was that it would, there would be about 23 members, I believe is where it was the last time I saw it. One member will be a representative, assuming it's adopted in this way. One member will be a representative from this committee, from the Housing Advisory Committee. And so it will be up to the committee to, again, I keep caveating this, but if it's adopted in this way, and we can probably confirm this before the end of the meeting here today, but it will be up to the committee to decide who from this committee you want to represent the Housing Advisory Committee on the city's work group for rent stabilization. So I think that, and Queen, I'd look to you to determine the best way to move forward, but because the resolution hasn't actually been adopted yet, it'll be, over the next few weeks, assuming it is adopted today, that they determine membership and things like that. So I think it would probably be appropriate for the committee, for committee members to start thinking about whether they would want to be the person, and then the committee could take action on it in May to designate who the person would be to represent the Housing Advisory Committee in that work group. And
I
happy to
agree,
take any
Katie.
questions. Okay.
I agree. And let's open it up for any questions. Members?
This is
Katie,
Deja. I don't have a question, but I just wanted to call out that the Federal Reserve in Minneapolis is doing a series on rent stabilization policies. The first part in the webinar series was earlier this week, and it had a really good panel and interesting discussion. I think a recording was made. And so if people in this group are interested in learning more, you might go look at the Federal Reserve and see about attending any of the future webinars. That's all.
Good information. If we could probably get some people to raise their hand, I think I can call on who's next.
This is me, Queen. I'll just reiterate what I said at the last meeting, how important it is. Rent stabilization is very important. Again, this is not a punishment to landlords. This is something that's needed within the city because rents are too high and renters cannot afford the rents that are in Minneapolis. So it is important for renters and it is not a punishment to landlords. And I hope that Minneapolis also adopt a rent control enforcement committee or something, so that it can be oversighted. And I think that part is important. So the working group is important, but having an oversight task force that can keep track of the rent control policies and the stuff that's being regulated behind it. So I think that's important.
Thank you, Karina.
You're welcome.
I see some other people want to chime in. Come on.
It looks like Colleen has her hand up, Colleen O'Connor Toberman.
Okay, Colleen.
Thank you. If folks are considering being the representative on this other working group, it might be great if we could get information about what kind of time commitment that group would be expected to undertake.
That's a good point, Colleen. Joey is going to be the lead staff person for that work group as well. And so I will pass that on to her, and we can definitely get some information out to the whole committee prior to the next meeting about what we anticipate the commitment would look like.
Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen.
This is Charlotte. I just wanted to ask if maybe the link to those webinars could be included either in the notes or in the chat, just so we can make sure we can access it.
That would be great.
Yeah, I'll try to find it while we're sitting here, and then we can also put it in the notes.
Thank you.
So I just really want to quick iterate something. So we want some members to participate in this housing committee, that work group that's wanting to be formulated, if we can get the understanding of what type of time commits. And also we are being invited to do the Federal Reserve rent stabilization webinars as well. That would be great to build those relationships.
Yep, and just to clarify, if the resolution is adopted, it designates that there will be one member from the Housing Advisory Committee on the city's work group for rent stabilization. So we would need to designate one member. But yes, we will definitely make sure you can get some more information about time commitment and expectations prior to May, when we would make that decision.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, hearing none, you want to move on to future agenda items? Anyone want to chime in on that? Or how about Community Connections Conference that's coming up May?
Queen, it's not a future agenda item, but I would like to know if we have any updates to Right to Counsel, Katie. Is there any updates to that?
Yeah, sure, I can share an update. So the policy was adopted by the council last fall, the Right to Counsel policy, which stated that Minneapolis renters have a right to legal representation if they are facing eviction. The city has funded legal aid over the last few years to provide legal representation services. And so earlier this year, the city added some additional funds that were in the budget and also through the American Rescue Plan Act, added some funds to Legal Aid's contract, and also has designated Legal Aid as the sort of the program entity to implement the right to counsel. So, and then we'll be reviewing later in the year sort of how that's going. The other important piece of that is that Hennepin County, through its Adult Representation Services Office, is also providing legal representation to households who live in Hennepin County who are experiencing poverty at 150% of the federal poverty level or below. So there's a combination of legal representation being provided through both Legal Aid and Hennepin County to anybody going to housing court who is a Minneapolis resident. And as of now, between those two efforts, anyone who is going, who does have to go to housing court for an eviction case does have access to counsel. So that's the latest, and we will be continuing to do some evaluation. The ordinance does require a report to the council later in the year, and so we could also certainly share that with this committee when we are bringing that to the city council as well.
Okay. So then my other question, two-part, be a two-part. So how will renters know they have the right to get right to counsel? So we stated already that those landlord and tenant books that we have, they're outdated, and we would like to get those books updated with the newest information that we have. So how do we push that out there to renters who don't know the ordinances and all the stuff that they have to help fight their rights? So how would renters know this? Unless they're going through the process, that'll be how they know it.
So there's a couple things that happen now, and then there are some planned activities as well. So currently, if any, the Hennepin County as well as Legal Aid have agreements, and Homeline have agreements with the courts to get information about any filing. And so so those entities, Homeline, Legal Aid, and Hennepin County, do proactive outreach to renters who do have an eviction filing via text and phone calls to let them know they have access to legal representation. So that occurs now. And then the Regulatory Services Department received some funding through the American Rescue Plan Act to do tenant outreach on tenant protections, because there have been a number of new tenant protection ordinances adopted by the City Council over the last few years. And so they are working on an outreach plan. I think that Andra Bosniak was at this meeting last month to talk a little bit about that. I don't remember the exact timeline, but I believe this summer is when they plan to start rolling that out.
Okay. And then lastly, is there any updates on how the renters ordinance is going? And is there any enforcement policy that can follow that ordinance in the future so that there is no loopholing?
Which ordinance are you referring to?
The rental ordinance or the tenant ordinance. Which one was it? It was so many. I believe it's the rental ordinance, the one that was passed in 2019.
The screening criteria and security deposit that address those two items?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Kelly Rose Jones couldn't be at this meeting this week, and so I can follow up with her. Maybe she or someone from her team can be prepared to give an update on that at the next meeting. The complaints that the enforcement of that is through complaints. It's complaint based. I believe there have been a couple, at least that I've heard about, but I don't. She would be best positioned to give a more detailed update on how that's going. So I can we can request that for the next meeting.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Can I,
Okay.
can I ask a
moving on.
clarifying question about that? Katie, maybe you know. I've had several people that have applied to rent and knew they would not meet the qualifications and offered to pay a higher security deposit. And I told them I didn't believe I was even allowed to accept that. Previously, if someone had either an eviction or very bad credit, I allowed people to pay a double security deposit. And if they had consistent payments for 6 months, I gave one back. But I've explained to people that I don't believe we're even allowed to do that. Do you know, because they literally said, well, I can't find a place anywhere. And I'm, I can't afford to rent to people who can't pay. And, so I'm just wondering, are we precluded, or is it we can't ask?
I don't know the answer to that. That's something we could dig into. It may fall into an area of we're not able to provide advice on that if it could be perceived as legal advice. I see Cecil went off muted, so maybe it's something MHA has thought about as well. But so go ahead, Cecil. But I can certainly find out if I can get you more information, Bruce.
Yeah, we don't give legal advice, but the ordinance is very clear that a landlord may not accept more than 1 month's security deposit, regardless of whether it's offered or tendered or anyway. That's just the law says what it says, and it says no more than 1 month's security deposit.
Okay, yeah, that was my understanding, and I don't know if the people that put the policy together understand that there's a lot of people that aren't able to even find apartments because they don't qualify with even the most basic, review. And the alternative is they've removed the vehicle that could secure them housing. So I'm just, I'm not sure how that kind of feedback ever gets put out there, but I know as advisory committee, sometimes we share stuff, right? So I'm in numerous large scale forums with people that provide housing, and that's one that has gone back and forth. So it's just people having that information that even with good intentions, it's causing issues. So just thought I'd ask. Okay, thank you.
All right. Anything else? I just want to touch bases a little bit. I think it would be kind of interesting on bringing, updating some of those pamphlets that were landlord tenant agreement packages. Maybe if there was a way that other entities like churches or whatever could secure some additional funding for people so that they could have places to rent or secure a deposit for a place to rent. I don't know how that would work, but I think that we could probably do, if it's permissible, to get some information. I see you, Cecil, to get some information in some booklets. If we could there was some homeowners guide resources from Rec Services. That would be nice if we could get some updates. There was also the lead-based testing for healthy homes that had a EPA, I believe, pamphlet. If we could get some updated information for that, for maybe just community connections or our upcoming meetings in person, so that people could have some resources available, or just try to re-implement and see what's really available for people to be able to come together and get new information on helping us find this niche on the housing crisis. I'm going to recuse my mic, and I am going to recognize Cecil Smith.
Well, Queen, you ask a great question, and to help Bruce. So Housing Link has just launched Beyond Backgrounds. I don't have the link for it readily available. We published it to the industry this last couple of weeks, and it's a mechanism for residents who may have some financial distress or other factors in their housing history that enable them through an insurance policy to perhaps get access to housing that they might not otherwise qualify for. So the program's called Beyond Backgrounds. It's through Housing Link. It's very novel. It's something that we have been advocating that somebody step forward and develop, and Housing Link has done so. And so we're hoping that's just another tool for housing accessibility.
Thank you, Cecil, for that information. Somebody's mic is not muted. 4132. We can hear your background. Is there anything that anyone else would like to add at this time?
Queen, just one last thing. I would like to discuss the absentee landlord status here in Minneapolis. One of the reasons why we have a lot of housing issues with tenant and landlord issues. So we would need to possibly, create some type of statement or something, press release or something, because we have a lot of absentee landlords who do not live in this state. And so a lot of things get thrown under the rug because they don't know what's happening, or they act like they don't know what's happening. So that's another reason why we have this other layer of housing issues, because this state has a lot of absentee landlords, and they don't have an actual office here. And we need to work on that. We need to work on getting that part of housing fixed too, because I feel last time we jump from ordinance to ordinance, and then there's no real protection behind a lot of these ordinances, because again, renters don't know how to use a lot of this stuff. Half of them don't know their rights. So it's like we keep jumping into this big pot, this melting pot of ordinances and laws and passes, but we got people on the street, we got people who just follow through the cracks of stuff. So I think that this is a discussion that a lot of people right now are discussing about all these absentee landlords that's getting away with the things that they're doing by, having unfair housing issue, not following city and state rules, unfit units, and all of that. And a lot of that follows behind, most of these absentee landlords. So I think that needs to be some kind of addendum or some new policy work with enforcement. Minneapolis has a lot of rules, but they have no enforcement. And that's why a lot of these bad landlords get to walk around here in the state of Minnesota and get away with a lot of the things that they do, because this state has no enforcement policies. So I recuse myself from that, because I can go on and on and on. But this state does need to talk about absentee landlord status here in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Thank you, Karina.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Anyone else? I see
Queen?
Lisa.
Yeah, you had asked about information for Community Connections. Is that for the upcoming Community Connections conference that's going to be at the convention center?
Yes, Lisa. I just was going over some information that I had from the past, but I seen that there was a lot of information that wasn't updated. And I think that would be a great way to pass out information. And if we could get some of those flyers in there, and I think that would be great.
Yes, we're planning on having a table at the Community Connections Conference. And so we will come with lots of flyers.
Thank you, Lisa.
Would it make sense to have Keith Ellison on one of our calls so that his office can update those books that they mail out?
Probably.
Yeah, it would at least somebody from his office, because when you want those books, they do come from his office. So, but a lot of that information is definitely outdated.
People would call right in the middle of the team. No.
Well, since we're still going, hey, so Katie, I have another question for you. Are there any updates on the Section 8 lawsuit that was in the Supreme Court?
I don't believe so. I can also get another update for you for the next meeting, but the last I had heard from our city attorney's office is that the lower part of the case was decided by the Supreme Court, but then they turned back other parts of the case to lower courts, and those parts are still being sorted through. And so there is still an injunction on the ordinance. So the city is not enforcing it at this time while it's working its way through the courts. That was the update I had as of earlier this year, but it's probably been a couple of months. So I can follow up with the city attorney to make sure that's still the status and provide an update next time. But I believe that is the current status of it.
Okay. And then one more last thing, I promise. Are there any updates on the spot, the location where the Drake building was torn down? Is there any updates on that? Part of anything that's happening?
I do not know. So I can try to get an update on that for you as well.
Okay, just was curious.
Queen, you're muted.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, now we can hear you. No,
You can
it's
hear me
muted.
now.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, great. So I was just asking about the city council member Jenkins is not ready yet, correct?
That's correct.
Katie?
Yes, that's correct. We're still waiting on word from her office. So I think we can move to the next item.
Okay.
The,
All right.
the city council meeting just ended a few minutes ago, so I think she's probably just transitioning.
Okay.
But
next.
really quickly, I can confirm that the work group resolution was adopted, and it does include a seat for a member of this committee. So we will get you some more information about what that commitment we expect it to look like, and send it around. But please do start thinking about whether that's something you'd be interested in, because we'll have to select somebody at the next meeting.
Okay, wonderful. Our next item, I believe, is Affordable Housing Trust Fund and Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program by Carrie Goldberg. Or maybe not.
Hi, I'm not Carrie, but I'm going to just say a few things before Carrie gets started. Thank you, Queen. I'm Amy Geisler, and I'm the manager of the residential finance group in CPED, and we do the affordable rental housing for the city finance work. For those of you who were on the committee last year, you might remember that Carrie and I were here to provide these same updates. So we're back again. It's been an entire year, and so we're here to kind of share updates with you and answer questions and get your feedback on that. So And before Carrie gets started, I also wanted to introduce another new person on our team, who is Emily Carr. And Emily, if you could want to turn on your camera and introduce yourself here to the committee.
Sure. Can you see me? I think I'm on. I'm Emily Carr. I'm the supervisor in residential finance. So I started in this position last December, replacing Amy in a promotional move. So I have been with the city since 2018, and I was a senior project coordinator in multifamily rental housing until December. So I will be working on the city's housing tax credit programs and our bond programs going forward, as well as overseeing our senior project coordinators that work on managing our multifamily rental projects, getting to closing. So I'm happy to be here and nice to meet all of you. And with that, I will hand it over to Carrie.
Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to be with the committee again. As Amy mentioned, it's been about a year since we were here. And I'm going to go ahead and give you another overview of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund program. We did submit some slides to go over the program, and I'm wondering if we have those or if I should share my screen. I can do that.
I can share them too, Carrie. I'll share them
Okay.
if you want to go ahead and get started.
Sure. So the Affordable Housing Trust Fund program is one of the city's biggest programs that provides gap financing for multifamily rental housing. And the program, so go ahead and go to the next slide. Oh, thanks. So again, this program is for multifamily rental housing projects with 10 units or more. We provide gap financing for the new construction or rehabilitation of projects that are providing, again, 10 units or more, and 20% of the project needs to be at 50% AMI or less, and that's the average median income. And for a family of four, that's $52,450. So just to give you a benchmark of what a family has needs to qualify for units in this program. The funds that are provided in this program are structured as deferred loans over 30 years, and we require that affordability for the units in these projects match that. So we look for affordability on the affordable units to remain in place for at least 30 years. And this program implements a number of city policies that get adopted throughout the year, policies that get updated through the year, including our Unified Housing Policy, the Minneapolis 2040 policy, and we've incorporated many of the renter protection policies. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Awards that come out of this program for projects are done on a per unit basis, and it's a qualifying unit, and those are units that are at 50% AMI or less. And so for at the base level, you can a project can receive $30,000 for any unit at any size that's at that 50% AMI or less. To try and incent to get larger units in a lot of our projects, and because larger units can cost a little bit more, the city is willing to award $40,000 per 2-bedroom or more units, and we'd like to see those at deeper affordability, so those need to be at 30% AMI or less. And then the maximum cap on any project is 15% of the total development cost, whichever is lower. Next slide. I'm just going to point out a few special initiatives that the program has. First is the Large Family Housing Initiative. This has been part of the trust fund for about 4 or 5 years now, and this again incents larger family size units that are experiencing homelessness. These projects can qualify for up to $50,000 per 3-bedroom unit or larger at 30% AMI or less. And these projects need to have at least 4 units. And we do require that these units, again, since they're dealing with homelessness, work through the Hennepin County Coordinated Entry System. Another initiative that the city has undertaken is trying to incent and provide awards for the single room occupancy initiative, and that allows for awards to be issued on a per sleeping room basis where they have a shared bathroom and a shared kitchen facility and these are for units that are intended for longer term rental use versus shorter term, which is considered more of a shelter use. We're looking to subsidize permanent long-term rental housing. And these projects can qualify up to $15,000 per sleeping room. And these are for designated homeless units. And the minimum number of units for one of these projects needs to be at least 10 sleeping rooms on one site. And then the last initiative I'll highlight has also been around for a number of years. The city council had set a goal of trying to provide a minimum of 35 new affordable senior housing units in each ward by 2025. And the city has done a good job of working towards achieving those goals. And so far, 8 of our 13 wards have met this goal. And so for wards that are still working through this to achieve this goal, these proposed projects receive extra points when they apply to this program and when we do the scoring evaluation, which I'll highlight a little bit later. Next slide. So again, this is one of the city's largest programs. And so in doing that, we have 3 funding sources that contribute to this program. 2 federal funding sources contribute, which is CDBG, Community Development Block Grant Funds, and the Home Investment Partnership Funds. We get an allocation from HUD in CDBG and Home each year to this program. And then we also, the city allocates pooled TIF or general fund dollars. So there's 3 sources that go up, that make up this program. Occasionally we'll have a project that needs to relinquish funding, and so those funds get reallocated back into the project, or if they haven't closed in a timely manner, those funds get incorporated back into the project to be re-rolled out into another project that would qualify. And the amounts and allocation of these sources are determined each year through the city's annual budgeting review process. And then all of the funds must be spent in accordance with all federal and state requirements. And as you go through the program and as we talk through some of these things, you'll see many of the program requirements, in addition to implementing city goals and policies, are to comply with state and federal requirements for our public fiduciary responsibilities. Next slide. So when we do the award considerations in making a recommendation to City Council, there are a few things that get looked at. One being thresholds. There are, again, number of factors. And as I was just mentioning, the city is required to meet our fiduciary public responsibility in managing these funds. And so one of the things that we evaluate them against is the underwriting criteria that gets adopted from the program. In addition to that, we also look at scoring, and then I'm going to highlight the scoring criteria on another slide. The scoring criteria helps identify the level at which a project meets objectives and goals that are adopted by the city. And then, and I do want to highlight that projects are not awarded funds just based on scoring alone. There are additional factors that we take into consideration, including the timing of a project, as far as when that project can close, whether there are additional funding gaps that a project needs to close in order to have all of the funding secured. Again, this program only provides gap financing, so there are a lot of other sources that go into these projects. And the city works toward projects that can achieve a closing and begin timely construction. And, timely construction for a project that receives funding from this program usually is around 1 to 3 years. It takes a lot to put the funding together when we're dealing with millions and millions of dollars. So I wanted to just give a perspective on what timing is for when a project receives an award to when a project closes. And it can take several competitive cycles for a project to have all of their funding compiled to be able to get to that closing. So next slide, please. Okay, so as I just mentioned, scoring is one of the factors we use in assessing whether to recommend a project for an award or not. It indicates the degree to which a project is meeting all of the goals and policies the City Council has prioritized. And these criteria are described in depth in our notice of funding availability, but I also wanted to just give you a quick kind of run through on what those categories are that you can that we consider. And you can see there's 18, and then depending on some of them have ratios, and so there's a range of points that are awarded if they, you know, have a threshold of, you know, low to medium to high. And so in going through all of that, we take a look at that base score. There's a minimum threshold that needs to be met, and that is 82 points. And then as projects achieve these goals and policies, then those projects that rise to the top are the ones that are considered for awards. There are no significant changes in the scoring this year. Last year, I believe when we presented to you category 18, the equitable development was a new category that was added. And this year there are no new categories being added. Mainly what we've done is in going through the program this year, based on all of the updates we've made, what we've done is add a lot of clarifying language. When we get the applications in and get a lot of questions, it indicates, you know, how people are able to perceive the program and meet our requirements. And so most of the program's updates, scoring updates this year have all been just clarifying language, and also in response to federal requirements that need to be incorporated. Next slide. So I just want to give you a little bit of an overview of the deliverables that come out of this program. The projects that were awarded in 2021, and there were 10. So in 2021, we had 19 applications for projects, and the city awarded 10 of those 19 projects. And of those 10 projects, they will create or preserve 797 units. And of those 797 units, almost 300 will have project-based Section 8 rental assistance or some other type of housing support rental assistance. 622 of the units being developed will be affordable to residents with incomes at or below 50% AMI. And of that 622 units, 291 are 30% AMI or below, and 152 units are designated for people experiencing homelessness. Next slide.
Hey, Carrie, this is Katie. I apologize for interrupting, but if there is a spot that makes sense for you to pause, I just want to acknowledge the council president is on. She joined, she was going to be on earlier in the meeting, but had to join late because the council meeting ran late. So if there's a good pausing point for you, Carrie, maybe we can just let her say hello to the committee.
Absolutely. Actually, this is a good time because the next 4 slides, I was going to just highlight projects that received awards last year. So I think this is as good a time as any to take a pause and allow Councilmember Jenkins to speak. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. And as I know you all are aware, we were just in a very marathon city council meeting, literally discussing this very topic, rent stabilization, and I'm very happy to report. Let me just rejigger. My name is Andrea Jenkins. I am the president of the Minneapolis City Council, and you see her in her pronouns. And wherever we are in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, in the United States of America, we are on indigenous land, stolen land. And here in Minneapolis, we are on Lakota, Dakota, Mdewakanton Sioux, Ojibwe, and I'm sure there's others that I am missing, but we want to just make that acknowledgement in a country that is built on stolen labor. So that's the context in which we have these conversations. That said, we just approved my proposal for a, rent stabilization work group that will convene to help us bring forth a rent stabilization policy that reflects the values of this council as well as the city of Minneapolis, and the voters voted in affirmative for us to bring forth a rent stabilization policy. You know, I 100% think we need a rent stabilization policy. But I know that the main people who are really suffering from the high rents are Black and brown women with children. That's who is really, um, trying to manage through this oppressive, capitalistic um, home um, system, housing system that we have in our country, where housing is a commodity, right? Housing is a business, and so we are creating this work group to be able to try and address that. But I do want to just note that I don't think rent stabilization is the only thing that can be done to address this crisis, and it absolutely is a crisis. I mean, one of the things that we have to have is more housing. So we need people to continue to build housing. I think we need to be attracting and training developers of color, and that is some of the work that the city is doing to create those housing opportunities. We need to create more ownership opportunities for communities of color and help support them in that effort. I think we need to probably subsidize some of our low income Black and brown families to be able to afford the rent until we live in a society where corporations pay fair wages, livable wages, so that people don't have to work 3 and 4 jobs in order to be able to pay rent and buy groceries and put gas in the car and send the kids to daycare and all of those kinds of issues. We're going to have to step in, I think, as society and help to subsidize some of that. One of the projects that I am really happy about that is happening in my ward, and actually there's another event that's going on today about the first senior housing project in the city of Minneapolis is now accepting applications. That's at Absentee Community Center, and that's affordable housing. They have affordable housing for seniors. Some units at 30% of the area median income. They have 2 units specifically dedicated for seniors that are experiencing homelessness. And then the project that I think was just getting ready to come on the next slide deck is a project at 39th and Chicago on the, I'm not sure if it's the former Calvary Lutheran site. I guess it's still the Calvary Lutheran site right now. They're calling it Calvary Apartments. It's been developed by the Trellis company, and they did receive an Affordable Housing Trust Fund award of $1.2 million. That's 41 units of deeply affordable, supportive housing for homeless persons. This is the kind of project that we need, but we need all kinds of housing. We need workforce housing. We need housing for folks at the 60% of area median income. And we know that in our community, we have people that can live in luxury in luxury housing, and that's affordable to them. And so, in order to, I think, attack this issue, we need to be really thoughtful and deliberate about the kinds of policies that we implement As many of you know, the city has, over the past 5 years, incorporated many tenant protections and various supports, legal support for people facing eviction. We require landlords to inform potential tenants of their energy costs. Just a number of tenant rights and tenant protections that have been incorporated here at the city. And so I'm not sure what you guys want to talk about. I'm happy to try to answer any questions. The rent stabilization policy work group, I'm hoping will get underway. We'll have all of the members in place within the next 8 weeks. And we began that process of coming up with a rent stabilization policy that is specific to the city of Minneapolis. And so I'm wanting to try to answer any questions that folks may have.
All right. Well, we thank you, President Councilmember Jenkins. Is there anyone in the committee that would like to bring any questions forward about the work group that is being formulated for rent stabilization from this body? Katie? Can anybody hear me?
Who can hear
Okay. All right. That's good. That's good. Long as we can hear each other, that's good. Okay.
I do want to just acknowledge Ms. Dobson, who's on the call, and we've been working together creating some of those tenant protections that I've talked about. But she will be sort of spearheading or facilitating our work group process, and so has been very instrumental in the staff level work that it has taken to bring this proposal to the front, and will be intimately involved in implementing it. So I'm going to lean on her to help answer any questions, the tough questions. The easy ones I will take. And no,
I recognize CISO.
Thank you, Queen, and thank you, Council President Jenkins. We've been in this meeting while you have just concluded your meeting on the rent stabilization amendment, so we're not fully up to speed. There was a sort of timeline in your original motion. Can we get any update on the timeline for the formation of the work group and how the work might proceed, please?
Certainly. So I think I mentioned that we anticipate, we got to recruit, we got to orientate and do all of those things. We anticipate having a work group in place in approximately 8 weeks. And then, after that, we need to give the group time to do their due diligence, get up to speed on research and various documents that have been created. But our goal is to have this item on the ballot in November 2023. Does that answer your question,
Yeah,
Mr. Smith?
Thank you very much. That's helpful.
Thanks, Council President, and hi everyone. It's good to see you. So Council President, I typically lead staff on this, but as you know, we've all had a long day at City Hall. So I am now taking over. Committee members, hello. I'm taking over for Katie now for staffing for the rest of this. She gracefully took on the staffing for the first hour while we were finishing up at City Hall. So I'm here for you all, and I'm also, as the Council President said, will be the staff lead as part of a team from CPED and Regulatory Services and other staff that will be the behind the scenes, staff helping support this work group. We will be securing an external facilitator in the coming weeks. So the membership, kind of confirming membership, and then securing a facilitator are our next steps as staff. And as the council president said, our best guess is that we would anticipate this group would maybe begin convening in June. And again, as the council president said, I know November 2023 seems like a long time from now, but there's, as we know from last year, there's this very significant and involved process that goes into getting something on the ballot. So if you think of election day 2023 in November, walking back from that to get something on the ballot, language has to be provided to the county by August. I don't remember the date off, by August. So working back from there,
I believe it is.
Thank you. And so before that, the city council needs to go through its legislative process. So the rough anticipation from staff is that the work group would roughly convene from June through the end of this calendar year, and then need some time to put together its whatever report and recommendations it will then provide to our elected officials and policymakers to then kick off their official legislative process. So I know that's rough, but that's what we're aiming for.
Thank you.
I recognize Bruce.
Yeah, Councilmember President Jenkins, I just applaud the approach that that the council is taking in this, where it's going to be much broader cross section and really well thought out, because I had a lot of concerns about how the St. Paul one was done, where a very narrow group put forth. So I'm really glad to see a lot of thoughtfulness gone into figuring out what's the best for Minneapolis. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Welcome, President Jenkins. This is Committee Member Karina. I would like to mention that we would like the rent stabilization on the ballot for this year, not 2022, because renters are still suffering for paying this high cost rent that many cannot afford in the city of Minneapolis. And so I think it's best that it goes on this year's ballot, and I'm happy to hear that the work group was approved, but it definitely needs to be on this year's ballot. So I would leave it at that, and thank you for being here.
No, thank you, and you're welcome. I absolutely 100% appreciate your concern. I share your concern. I just think that taking a deliberate approach to really make sure we're crafting the policy that is going to be most impactful and most helpful, and not exacerbate the problem that we have, but that helps to really address some of the issues and concerns. And again, rent stabilization is only going to be one part of a broad suite of solutions that we are going to have to consider in order to try to get a handle on this problem. So thank you for your comments. And I know many people absolutely agree with you that, we need to move this work as quickly as we can. And I think that's what we're attempting to do.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Is there any other questions for President Councilmember Jenkins?
This is Anaya Bob Manuel with Bob Manuel Investments, Blue Collar Homes. I have one question.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. My question is, I understand that you're trying to help with developers bringing new units to the community, and I was wondering what's being done to make sure that developers from the neighborhood are involved in the process, and what steps are taken to make sure that we're part of what's going to be brought up and to keep the community affordable but also with the equity portion of developing those relationships and skills with the city so that we can be partners.
Well, we do have what we're calling a development training program, for lack of a better word. Joy, can you help me with, is DTAP, is it? Developer Technical
Yes.
Assistance Program.
Yes.
So, which we are reaching out, targeting developers of color or people of color who want to become developers. Like you don't have to be a developer. We want to help you understand that process and really be able to start from the ground level and work your way up. It sounds like you may already be in the development business of creating single family homes or multi-family homes. I'm not sure, but those are some of the ways that we hope to be able to impact and support developers of color to ensure that they are part of the creation of the kinds of housing that we need in our community, and as well as benefiting from the the development of that housing as well. Are you a part of that?
I signed up for the program. I signed up for the DTAP program, I believe it's called. I haven't found out the final confirmation if I've been accepted, but yes, I've done investment properties in the city and helped at least probably 30 people within the last 12 months buy homes in Minneapolis. So many of them first-time home buyers, so I'm well aware. It just seems like sometimes there's a disconnect at the table with, at this stage, with putting up the bigger develops and not just a single family, but I see this program is mainly for 10 units and up. And that's the scale that really affects large amounts of people at one time. And I'd just love to be able to participate in that and just make sure I'm connected to the right people for that.
Right. What's your name again, sir?
Aneye Bob Manuel.
Okay. Can you help me spell that?
INEYE. First name, last name, BOBMANUEL.
NANUAL?
UEL. MANUEL.
And the first name is INEYE.
Aneye.
Aneye.
Thank you.
Bob Manuel.
Bob Manuel. BOBMANUEL.
MAN. Okay, I had NAN. Bob Manuel. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you applied for DTAP.
Yes.
Yeah, and I know a couple of other people who are so no determinations have been made yet. And they're still, so it's not like you're out of the running. I just want to confirm that. And the fact is no determinations have been made to this point, but I do think that they're getting close. Joy, did you have some information about that?
I would be happy to follow up as well.
Okay, thank you.
I do recognize that Mr. Bruce Banner still has his hand up. Anyone else? And Joey.
Thanks. I was just, I know I want to respect your time, Council President, but just for this committee, kind of zooming out from, the rent stabilization stuff we've talked about in the past, Council Member Gordon was sort of our adopted caretaker from the council and gave us some helpful guidance of when and what types of things coming down the pike might be helpful for this committee to weigh in on. And so I would just ask if now or in the future, if you have any guidance for how, this committee exists to provide recommendations, and support to the council and to the mayor's office on housing issues. So if either now or in the future, if you have specific items that you would really like to see this group working on or weighing in on, we'd really appreciate any guidance that you have.
Thank you, Joey.
Yeah, no, thank you, Joy. I will note that Councilmember Gordon was a member of the Housing Committee for his entire career. and he served as the chair of said committee the last term. I am not on that committee at all. But you know, I'm certainly willing to share my own thoughts and ideas. You know, I'm gonna be real biased. We need housing in Ward 8, so that's what I'm gonna be kind of talking about. But you know, I want to just note and go back to the myopic view a little bit, that we will be including the Housing Advisory Committee as a member of the work group. So hopefully you guys are thinking about, you know, a process for determining who that representative will be. But we certainly want to have representation from this body to be a part of the rent stabilization work group. But certainly, you know, I mean, there's so many issues that impact affordable housing, right? Like people need income. You know, I always say we don't have an affordable housing problem. We have a I can't afford the housing problem. You know, because you know, some of the people that live in these buildings that I'm looking out behind me, you know, the rent is $2,300 a month. They can afford that. You know, they don't have a problem, so to speak. But many people in our community do. And so, and I think it's a big part of it is the income. Are there unscrupulous property owners and landlords out there? There is no question about it. Are there foreign investors that are buying up properties in our communities and subsequently, you know, either taking them off the market and turning them into vacation rental properties or those kinds of things? Like that's happening too. And that's all a part of the housing mix that we have. So these are complex issues. I absolutely want to, you know, continuously get input and information from as many voices as I can in order to try to make these really challenging and difficult decisions that we have to make on the city council. And I just appreciate the work that you guys do to be a part of this body and to really put your thought and brain power to trying to come up with recommendations and solutions to these really challenging issues. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. One of the things I would like to add, Councilmember President Jenkins, is that we are in desperate need of first rights of refusal, of rehabbing some properties, and kind of putting a notice to out-of-town investors coming in, buying up our housing stock and not giving first rights of refusals to small developers or community individuals and residents that live in those communities first. And so I would be very happy along some line to have some sort of answer from a housing committee individual with the council to address that area. We know the bad actor of Haven Brook. Haven Brook is not unknown to this body or the work within the city of Minneapolis. And I would just try to hope that we can implement some sort of policy or something with first rights of refusal for small developers instead of taking some of our housing stock and giving them to out-of-town landlords.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Queen. And that is a real issue. And I was just reading an article, and I can't remember what city. I think it may be Seattle or Portland. Probably not San Francisco, but some city has created a policy. Some city has put a moratorium on foreign investors buying multiple properties in their city until they can craft some kind of policy to deal with it.
I think you're thinking
And
of Canada, because legally it would be difficult for anything in the United States to do that. But Canada, Trudeau came out and is proposing that right now, or it just
maybe
passed.
you might be right. I think it may be Canada, which their housing, it's, you know, I studied housing in college, community development, and in Canada, once a housing development is proposed, like 18 months later, people are like moving in, because essentially there is one source of funding for housing development. Maybe 2 or 3, private developer, the government, and maybe a nonprofit. Here, we need literally 18 sources to build almost anything. It takes years and years and years. You know, and every year that is delayed, the costs go up with construction, which in turn drives up the cost for the end user, the tenant that moves in. And so, you know, Bruce, I think it may be Canada, but you know, I think we got to look at all the things on the table. And I'm sorry, I would be willing to think about how we can disrupt this foreign invasion, if you will, of our housing market. And it's a national problem. And certainly it's a problem here in Minneapolis.
Well, we thank you so very much for your time. If there's
Yes,
any
thank
other
you for
questions from our
breaking up your
committee,
agenda. I appreciate
Yes,
it.
I just had a quick question.
And I will come back to this committee, you know, over time and share as necessary. So thank you for the invitation, and look forward to talking to you all soon. Bye.
All right, I'm on this way.
all right, okay. Thank you all. I'm aware of time here. Do we, let's see, where's our next agenda item?
I mean, I think we should go back, we'll go back to our presenters who had started.
Yes, yes, yes.
Thanks for bearing with us.
Oh, no problem. It was really lovely to have Councilmember Jenkins be able to join in. I know you guys were all waiting to hear from her, so. I am just about done with my presentation, so conscious of your time as well. I would like to hit some of the highlights after going through some of the nitty-gritty about our program. I'd like to at least hit the highlights of a few of the awards from 2021. And again, the city recommended 10, and I've only put 4 in here today. And Councilmember Jenkins hit on one of them, which was Calvary Apartments, proposed by Trellis Company. This will be 41 new units constructed in conjunction with the rehabilitation of the church. And all of these units will have rental assistance, and 10 units are being set aside for people experiencing homelessness. And I have some of the stats there on the slide. As you can see how they break down a little bit more. 7 of the units are larger bedrooms as well. So that's always a goal the city has, is trying to find housing for families. Next slide. Another project I want to highlight is Kyle Garden Square. This is an adaptive reuse of an old office building. There was a lab there, and I believe the lab is going to remain in the basement. They've relocated, and the upper 3 floors of this building are going to be rehabilitated into 55 new permanent supportive housing units, and these will be for people experiencing homelessness as well. And all units will have rental assistance. Next slide. And then Emerson Village being proposed by Beacon Interfaith. This project will be 40 new larger bedroom units. This is a project that was designed for larger family needs. And all the units will have rental assistance, and 20 units are being set aside for people experiencing homelessness. Next slide. And then the last project I'm going to highlight today is the Northrup King Residential Project, which is another adaptive reuse of a former industrial building. And this one's going to have 84 mixed income units. So a range of incomes going into this building, with over half of these units at two bedrooms or larger. And 12 of those units are set aside for people at 30% AMI or less. And then next slide. And then this is the last slide I have for you today, and I can conclude my presentation and take any questions that you have. Feel free to ask any. This last slide just goes over the process and timing of the trust fund. This program is an annual competitive program. And each year in the spring, we review the program and the notice for funding availability, and we provide any updates to this program based on new goals and policies that have been adopted to the council, any improvements that we receive feedback on throughout our prior year. So during 2021, any feedback we received or suggestions we received, we incorporate that. And then in May, we'll go to City Council and present these recommendations for the program. And then in early June, we'll issue the notice of funding availability. And then proposals will be due by the end of July. And then throughout late summer and fall, we underwrite the projects, we score the projects and evaluate them to put together recommendations for City Council in November, and then awards are made in December. And there are a number of partners that we work with in putting projects together. We work with Minnesota Housing, we work with Hennepin County, the Met Council, Federal Home Loan Bank, and MPHA quite a bit. So that would conclude my presentation for today. Unless you have questions, I heard somebody say earlier, making sure you're part of the process. Any feedback that you have, you can send it to me. You can send it to Joey and she can get it to me, and we can take questions now. And I see Amy has popped back up. I know that her and Alfric have been talking in the mayor's office with having a conversation about an initiative to incorporate maybe some workforce elements to the program, and I can let her talk about that a little bit more too.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. And that was a good summary. I just wanted to note for the committee that the mayor's office did have a work group on inclusive economic development that was looking at kind of more workforce economic development priorities, but they did look at housing a little bit and made a recommendation that for the city's housing programs, that we look at ways to incentivize workforce development in our housing programs to kind of promote projects that meet both those goals. So that is something that we're going to be looking at and probably including in our recommendations to the city council.
All right. I think that was very well presented, and I appreciated the information that was put out there. That was very helpful for myself. Let's go to our panel. How y'all doing, panel? We got a little bit to go. Just stay woke, drink your coffee, do some stretches, do some sit-ups, something. Keep yourself go eat some chocolate. Or drink some chocolate.
I have a few questions.
Either way it goes, we are woke. We are woke. We got a few more minutes. Do we have any questions from our famous panels? Committee members? About this, okay, I see you waving over there. Yes, yeah, bring it on.
I had to get the lights back on.
Oh, you had, okay, all right. Wow, it's that day. Okay.
I have some questions.
Okay, come on with it.
Okay. So, with your tax credit, properties that's, you know, coming to, you know, is more is coming. So I know I talked to Alfred, I think that's his name. I hope I didn't chop his name up. But we spoke, I think at our last 2 meetings, and I was talking about adding a retaliation agreement with those tiers to those properties that possibly can get redeveloped through the tax credit. Because in my experience, a lot of people that has dealt with, you know, the tax credit coming to their building and a lot of the stuff that's happening, a lot of these buildings need to definitely be, you know, inspected before that approval goes into effect. And so we want to make sure that, you know, we're just not around here giving out money to people who are not doing right by the money and the tenants. So I think that some kind of retaliation agreement should be added to it if a property is at a 3-tier property. And we want to make sure that we're sticking to that. Because if not, we're going to just keep having all these housing issues and we're not really checking the boxes. So yeah, that's my question.
All right.
All right, thank you. I can speak to that a little bit. And I know we did have the tax credit program on the agenda. Sorry, my cat is meowing in the background here, you guys, at a really inopportune moment. So we aren't updating the tax credit program requirements this year, and that's why we didn't do that as part of the presentation, because the updates we did last year were actually for 2 years. But the question you're asking related to tier 3 properties, I will follow up with Elfric about that. And he's my boss. So I'll follow up with him about that question and make sure that when we are making our next tax credit updates that we do take a look at that.
Thank you, Amy.
All right. Thank you so much.
I have a couple questions. I was looking at the slides and taking some notes. What is the percent on those loans for the gaps that for the people that want to do these rehab in development? The percentage on the loans?
Right, the deferred loan?
Yes.
So, yep. So for the trust fund, we set up the financing as a 30-year deferred loan at 0 to 1% interest. If it is 100% homeless housing and the rental assistance is there, a lot of times those are around 0% interest. If it's a mixed income level project, then we look for a 1% interest rate. And then the affordability of those units is set for 30 years to match that loan. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, it did. And is there any zoning requirements that the developer would have to go through? On what
right, yes, all of the program, all of the projects proposed have to meet zoning requirements, yes. So we included the link to the program materials where they're located on the city's website. And there's a lot of program materials. The first couple documents, though, are the biggest ones. They are the program documents themselves, which outlines all of the requirements that need to be met for the program. And then if you look at the second document, that's the notice of funding availability, and that has all the scoring criteria and application requirements in it. And anybody, you know, putting together a project will need to work through those two things to address that, and those deferred loan terms are included in that that program document.
One thing I'm not seeing is new market tax credit dollars. Is that something that is feasible, and will that is that going to be able to get some assistance with that as well?
You know, that's not part of the trust fund program, but I know we do have those out in the city. So I'll let Amy maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I can speak to that. Thanks, Carrie. So new market tax credits, they usually don't work in housing projects like the ones we've been talking about today, but we do sometimes see them in shelter projects. Like, for example, the Catholic Charities Project in Elliott Park that's going to be opening soon that has about 200 units of permanent housing, and then there's a shelter component as well. That project has new market tax credits in kind of the shelter portion of the building. So we do see it sometimes, but it's more in kind of a combination shelter project.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes my questions. Is there anyone else with any questions?
I have one more question. Far as the property manager and management plan, how are you guys scoring that, or what are you looking for? Are you pulling their MORs? How are you assessing or looking at that to determine, if you have a problem with those issues before you guys approve the bonds and stuff?
Right, so that is definitely something we look at. There are specific requirements and guidelines that are issued as part of the program that need to be met in a property management plan. And we review that property management plan. And as part of that, there's also a tenant selection plan that gets submitted and reviewed as well. And we review both of those documents as how they're being structured for the project as part of that underwriting process.
Okay. So do you pull the plan from the agent that has the plan? Let's say, for instance, Minnesota Housing. Do you pull those plans from them, or do you trust to pull the plan from the property managers or the management company?
There needs to be a property management plan developed specifically for the project proposed.
Okay.
And that needs to be submitted. And it needs to meet the requirements that are identified in the program.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you all for your well-informed presentation. I appreciate you. This body appreciates you. Is there anyone else? Is there anything else? Joey? Ah, there she is, like magic. Poof. And she appears.
I got nothing. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes.
All
Thank
right.
you. Please, as you guys go through our materials, if you have any other thoughts or questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Joey, you know what? The clock on the wall says it's getting closer. We're ready to close out.
Hey.
Yeah.
By all means, I think the city of Minneapolis has had a big day. You all, I'm sure, have had a big day. A couple things that I just would note, and sorry that I missed this. I just wanted to ask if you all discuss and maybe we can connect offline, Queen, but for the Community Connections Conference, if there was sort of if you all landed on a plan for, and I know Scott was involved with that, so maybe Queen, you and Scott and I can talk, but just thought I'd ask like how I can be helpful with that.
Yes. Did I send you or did I send Tina? Maybe I sent you this long laundry list of stuff we could be bringing together. I don't know. But yeah, we could talk offline about that stuff.
Sounds good. And I know that it was announced that the whole city, the advisory boards and commissions are moving back to in-person effective May. So just again, a reminder that this meeting will be in person. And I know Tina shared, she's been working hard to get us a good space. But I am just saying, plan for that. So I think it's May 12th is our next meeting. Feel free to reach out if you have kind of logistical or administrative questions about that. Please feel free to reach out to me. And then as was discussed, just after the committee, this meeting had started, the city council did adopt the work group for rent stabilization. So just one more time, think about if you would be interested in representing this committee. So I think the idea would be that the person really is, you know, kind of a liaison for this committee as a whole on that work group, and then can take, you know, concepts back and forth between this committee. I think it was clear that the city council has a great deal of respect for this committee. So at our May meeting, I think the goal would be at the May meeting to select, to decide who would be representing us.
I agree. So
I add to that, I would like for somebody to do it who don't normally speak a lot, who can, you know, bring back, you know, to the group.
well, there's a whole list of individuals.
Yeah, I would like for them to
Don't
get
be shy.
engaged. Yeah, I would like for them to get engaged, so that if they support it, but I would love for other people to get engaged in what's happening, because it's definitely something that's a big needed discussion. And then while we're closing out, I would just like to close out by saying, until the city of Minneapolis stops using housing as a commodity, as Andrew Jenkins was saying, we will continue to have these housing concerns. I think this state should have went under housing state of emergency a long time ago. This winter has proved it. We're already starting to see pop-up tents everywhere. I think the tenants in Minneapolis need some kind of repair from the stress and the exhaustion that they're receiving under a lot of. I viewed a building the other day, and you're talking about, I had an asthma attack twice in this building. It's the Millennium Buildings. And I had an asthma attack twice because that's how poor the tenants are living. I won't say the other stuff they mentioned to me, but the conditions that they're living in is disrespectful as hell. There was holes in at least 16 apartments that we went in. I'm talking about you could fit a whole body through. The management company is unresponsive. The maintenance company is unresponsive. And the tenants in there don't know what to do because they're not getting the real help that they need. I went in an apartment that had mold through and through the bathroom, and then the water damage was coming into the living room to the door and above the door. The building it was like a hot box. It kind of reminded me of my building, how it used to be. And I felt bad for each and every one of those tenants because they had no idea of who else to talk to and how to get the real help. But it was undeniable. That was disrespectful how the tenants are living, and they have said they have reached out to services that has not helped them, and they don't know what else to do. They're scared to call the news.
Fortunately for us, we have rec services on our committee. And so rec services, we got an address for an inspector. Karina, maybe that's a piece to kind of go and maybe we can make a connection with them and have a housing inspector go through there and see what's viable and make sure that maybe they want to visit, take them on a tour of the facility.
Be honest with you, Queen, not to cut you off, but I feel as if anybody goes out there, and I know they need the help, I think that building would get condemned, and once again, we will have people displaced and on the streets. They should have got some help before it got to this point. This building has a pool that has bacteria water with the water still in the pool, and it's green. That bacteria air is flying in their apartments, and I asked if anybody in there had asthma or mold. At this point, nobody wanted to really speak anymore because they were exhausted. So I had to leave because it was affecting my asthma and my health, but I couldn't sleep yesterday after seeing what I saw. So I will talk to the tenant leader that's now organizing the tenants. They had 17 tenants who all were talking amongst themselves and didn't know everybody else was experiencing the same thing because they don't talk. But they have 16 tenants in a 54-unit building. I think it's more apartments than that, but they have 16 so far who had the courage to now help organize. So I don't know. I didn't
resource.
Huh?
There's a resource. Not to cut you off, there is a resource. I'm aware of time, but there's a resource. And if you want to, you know, it would be offline. I would be glad to give you a resource, because if Hennepin County can pay $3,900 for families and people to be put up in hotels, they can do something immediately about that living situation there. So I'd be more than happy to give you that resource.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Hey, well,
Karina,
I'm hungry.
did you say what the address of that building was?
I don't have it back in, but I can text the young lady who I went with yesterday.
All right, thank you.
But the property is Millennium Apartments or something like that. I thought it was the one that was in Florida that got that civil lawsuit going on, but apparently it's not the same exact one. But I can get the exact address from the person who I went with yesterday.
Please do, and we can follow up.
I'll email it to you. And then before we end, Joey, are you available on the 27th?
I'm not sure. Let me pull up my calendar. What's going on the 27th?
It's my annual awards ceremony.
Is there going to be cookies?
I don't know. I think so. It's going to be some little finger bites. Yeah. So it's the 27th from 5:30 to 6 at Elliott Park Rec Center. And I'll text you the invitation to it, but I just want to see now.
Yeah, text me. That'd be great. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. It's a beautiful day in our neighborhood. Beautiful day in our neighborhood. Won't you exit the group? We have done our due diligence. Thank you all for showing up. Thank you for our speakers, our presenters. We look forward to doing this again in May in person. Someone sideswiped my car, so I gotta go. Yeah, they knocked my mirror off my Infinity truck. Ugh. Anyway, I need cookies.
Members. Have a good night.
Yes, thank you. Good night. Yes. Meeting's adjourned.
Thanks, Queen. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.